today, thank you, Patrick, for joining us today. I'll just let everybody know, me and you met each other through the world of electric propulsion and electric vehicles. So you've got a very interesting business, and you've actually got a very interesting story. So I'm going to start all the way back to the beginning. So you're obviously not from London town, and they're going to hear that in a minute. Where are you from? Where did it all start? Tell us how you got here.
No worries. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for the opportunity, Alex. I'm an Australian. I'm born and bred in the west coast of Australia, Perth. Big mining centre in Perth. Yeah. Studied business after I left school, and specifically went into the mining industry, where I was involved in the mining of iron ore and other commodities, chromite, manganese, stainless steel, that makes stainless steel, so it's all to do with stainless steel.
Oh.
And in that job, I got to go in the marketing side of the business, so I was constantly travelling to places like Japan, Korea, China, Egypt, etc. And I did that for a number of years. I did that successfully for a number of years, and then I identified some resources in Australia that were untapped, being some tenements in the ground, and I broke away and started my own company mining those tenements. So I was mining stuff called chromite, which is used in the manufacture of stainless steel. That was my first foray into business. I used,
So how old was you when you opened your first mine? So obviously you've come out of education, you've got into the mining industry, which is absolutely massive in that part of the world. Was anybody in your family from that sort of background, or was it just, you saw this as the next, or this was the future? And at that time, Australia was being completely dug up by the Chinese.
Yeah, well, Australia's just been a quarry with a beach around it for years.
Right.
The reason that I ended up being born in Australia, my parents are actually Irish, and
the best ones are. We all come from the paddies.
My father was in the RAF, so he was captured in the Second World War in the fall of Singapore, and as part of he was in a prison of war camp and worked on the Burma Railway and all the things.
He was Did you speak to him about prison of war?
Yeah. No, he was captured in Singapore, worked on the Burma Railway for 2.5 years, and then was repatriated at the end of the war to Australia to recover, and that's where he fell in love with Australia. So he went back to Ireland, met my mum, and then I've got heaps of brothers and sisters, and then one day he said, look, I've had enough of the weather here, let's head to Australia, and they went to Australia and I was born there. So my younger sister and I are the only two that were born in Australia.
Wow.
Australia's, I don't have any mining background, but that was just the field that I took. And Australia really in those days, this is 30, 40 years ago, it really is a quarry for the emerging markets of Asia, iron ore, and Australia's blessed with all those resources.
So it's not just where we threw all of our people who stole an apple out. And I mean, the irony is we got thrown out of the East End of London, which was a slum and basically the cesspit of the world. And everyone went off to the sunshine, and it looked like they had the better end of the deal.
Well, you stole a loaf of bread in Islington and you ended up in Perth. Thanks for the beach and the sunshine.
Exactly. Do you know what? I fancy going out to Tesco's now, nicking 2 or 3 loaves of bread and saying, don't worry about Rwanda. Send me back to Perth.
Well, when my parents went out there in the 60s, they went to Australia in 63, you could take, it was a £12 tourist. So, you paid £12 and they stuck you on a boat. Their boat was called the Fair Star. And it took you to Australia because Australia needed immigrants. So, it was Italians, it was Irish,
we've got a lot of them now.
Brits.
Have you got anybody over there? We've got a couple of million that we want to try and get rid of today. So now all of a sudden, you're opening a mine. How much capital does it take how much money do I need to open a mine? How many people do I need? And how many shovels?
Oh, mate, this chromite is a commodity. Normally you've got commodities like gold and stuff which costs a fortune to open a mine. But chromite sticks out of the earth very, very strangely. So imagine a chocolate chip cookie and the chocolate chips are the chromite. It comes in these huge blocks. You crush them up and throw them in with with manganese and iron ore, and it comes out as stainless steel. So it's an important
it's formed
ingredient.
as one big kind of rock, which then you could pulp down and start to pull the
But
mineral out.
it's easy to spot it. So even on the surface, you can see. Imagine walking across the surface of a chocolate chip cookie, and all of a sudden these big black bobs are sticking up.
Right.
I identified as it, and I had a friend who was a geologist. So basically, starting the mine, I put in some capital. I didn't have a lot of capital. I think it was about 250 grand in the back in the day.
Hold on, that's a lot of money.
Well, I'd
I'm not
saved
gonna
it,
ask you
and I
where
got
you
a
all of
couple
that
of
money
other
from
investors.
underneath the. There was a very big mattress in those.
Well,
days.
it's like anything. Raising the capital is always the hardest part of any exercise, and I'll get onto that later.
Well, that's
but
the difference, yeah.
I was, it was tenacity and hard work. There's nothing like having your back to the wall. I went out there. I saw an opportunity. It was a long way from the coast. My biggest challenge was it was 350 miles from the coast, 600 kilometres. So I had to truck this stuff to the coast. The port was Port Hedland. I'd already been in China, so I organised somebody to buy it from me. I organised them to get a letter of credit, which I then got credit for the bank that allowed me to develop the mine. Yeah. Standard business procedure, but it took a lot of balls. I was 28 years of age.
Well, you say standard business procedure, but actually, these are all the chess pieces that have to be put in line before you can even dig a hole or do anything. And it's a logistical nightmare. And these are the things that entrepreneurs do. They are born this way because they'll just jump all of the hurdles. Because let me tell you something, you're making it sound easy. But it's not easy what you did. It's a feat of engineering, do you know what I mean? And then the ore is 350 miles from... So you've got to have all of the logistics, pay all the fuel bill, all of the transport, all of the costs. It's a massive operational to get to the end of the refinement, and then you don't know how much actual material you're going to get. It's a gamble all the way, Patrick.
It's gambling all the way till the check's in the bank. It goes to China. If they're not happy with it, it's got to be analysed at the Chinese end. If the analysis comes back and it says the ore doesn't meet the criteria, it doesn't meet the criteria, the letter of credit, it's all over for everybody. So you need to be confident in what you're doing. You need to have a margin of error for what you're doing, and you need to have partners. For example, the trucking company was giving me credit to truck it to port. That was our biggest single cost. Yeah. And I sat down with them and looked in the face and said, look, if this doesn't bloody work, you guys are not going to get paid. So you've got to have people that back you in. I mean, as it turned out, we did one shipment of 10,000 tonnes and we did another shipment of nearly 500,000 tonnes before I sold that business on, because it just got too big for me to continue to operate.
So just a quick question. So let's just say from the time you remove the material from site, you then...
Crush it and screen it.
Then you got to send it over to the purchasers. Purchasers then, you're sitting there.
Analyse it, yeah.
And we all know what an analyse is. It's their opportunity to knock you down on price. All of a sudden. So what's the time between the truck leaving site until the check turns up?
It's about 8 weeks. So the shipping time is about 3 weeks. The analysis at the other end's about a week. And then all of the crushing, trucking, getting together, the whole process from when we started was about 10 to 12 weeks. Getting the permission from the mines department and getting through legislation for Indigenous people and all that sort of thing, back in the day, you had to get all that before you started. I was actually standing at the ship, loading the ship, when the authority came through for me to start mining. Right. So that's where being an entrepreneur comes in. Well, you've got to take some risk.
You've got to take some risk. I mean, you're standing there with your balls in your hand and it can all go wrong at any second. And it seems to have been the way that the life has continued and is still today.
You fly by the seat of your pants,
That's what I've always loved about you. You are most certainly a Messerschmitt,
a
World War II
you're a risk
pilot.
taker, but... Yeah. I saw a thing that Bezos the other day, and this is an thing endemic of any entrepreneur. No matter how much money you've got, you feel that tomorrow or the next day,
it's all over.
Something could pop up out of the blue and it's all over. Somebody retrospectively does a law on you and you find out that you haven't paid X amount of tax. The government's after you. It ends. Even the guy that founded... NVIDIA, I saw him the other day and he said he still has sleepless nights. The guy's worth, $15 billion and he still worries that he's going to wake up the next day and it's all gone. So true entrepreneurs just keep on going. It's all about persistence and just, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Founder with Michael Keaton. It's about Ray Kroc, who was the guy at 55 that came in and took over McDonald's from the McDonald's brothers.
Yeah. No, I have seen that. It's a great thing.
And, you know, that movie, if you haven't seen it, I recommend anybody listening to this get it out this weekend because it's a very enjoyable movie. It's loosely based on fact, but Ray Kroc basically came in with no money and took over the franchise the McDonald's franchise from the McDonald's brothers and turned it into
a massive success.
A massive success. But that was all because he was just driven.
And you've got to be a visionary, and you've got to know where you're going and not get off of look, entrepreneurial from what I've experienced of it. I've been successful.
Well, you're an entrepreneur. I mean, through and through.
That's all I've ever been since the time I was 17. I've worked for myself since I was 17, and I'm still trying to get a job now. But for me, entrepreneurial is all about being frightened and being nervous and panicking. I am constantly was worried about being homeless and ended up being homeless. So it's a weird thing what you want to think about. Don't think about, like, be careful what you put in your mind. So for me, it's all about being frightened, and that's what drives me to keep going, because I'm just waiting for it all to collapse. And if I don't do 110% today, then today might be the day. And a lot of people are out of fear. A lot of people have got different drives. What was your main driver? Was it just you got on a project and you just wanted to see it to the end? So
psychological. I come from a family of 9 kids, right? And I'm the second youngest.
Properly Irish.
And I've got 5 older brothers. And in growing up, not that my parents forgot me, but they were very busy with the other kids. And I was sort of always pretty independent and looked after myself, whereas some of the other brothers and sisters needed a bit more help than me.
Where are you in the number?
I'm number 8.
Oh,
so they
had
had perfection, then they had my little sister. They realised they were going backwards and they stopped. Love you, Veronica.
He does really.
But the net of it is that I think I inherited from that I had to make waves to survive, and that made me a survivalist, you know, and that bred the entrepreneurial. In school, I was good at school. In university, I was good at university, but I always thought that I was smarter than the people who would teach me. I always wanted to go to the next level. And when I was working for people, I just sucked up everything that they were telling me. And then I was already working out a better way to do it when they were telling me how to do it. So that's the way I've lived my life.
Your mind was a sponge, and you was able to take in the information.
And it doesn't change. You know, I still have sleepless nights here. I'm still, if I'm not as soon as I finish this podcast, I'm working out how to make my business better, how to do things smarter. You know, that's my focus. And if you fall in love with what you're doing, it's incredibly hard work and stressful. But if you fall in love with what you're doing, it's that you hear this adage, it's not a job. It's still a bloody job, but it just makes it more palatable when things are going well.
I'd explain it like this. Some people like playing golf all day, right? Or people have got hobbies. This is my hobby. When I went to the doctors and I was mentally stressed and I was going through therapy and all the rest of it, and they go, look, can you go out and you need to go and get a hobby? And I'd say, mate, I've fucking got a full-time hobby. That's why I'm in here, pulling my hair out over it because I can't fucking deal with it. He went, well, no, you need to go off and go walking or shooting or something like that. I said, mate, I've just got 7 or 8 businesses on the go. Each one of them is my hobby. That's what I do all day long. I don't want to go and fucking play golf. I want to get them little things working instantly all the right. So that's what we do. We tinker and we carry on. So I think, in this world, people come down in different sectors. You've got builders, you've got architects, you've got musicians, you've got therapists. We were designed to create and make.
Yeah, exactly, and it's in your DNA, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, people think sometimes, we're magicians and we can make things happen easily. It's not like actually, I am a magician.
Yeah. Oh, you do a bit of the old sleight hand of how's your father's.
Watch this. If I click my fingers,
I'll blink.
No, you're going to forget you were gay.
Oh, what was that? What's here? Where's that geezer? Where's that geezer gone? That I was looking up on Facebook a minute ago.
You're not.
Exactly. I'm not gay anymore.
You're not gay anymore, right?
Could you do that with my tax return? Now let's see really how good you are. Let's get back to it. Let's go.
Look, I mean, it's born and bred in you, and I suggest that once you're an entrepreneur, you cannot work for anybody else. It's forget about it. It's like you're not going to take orders well from other people. I surround myself now as an older entrepreneur with really clever people, and I listen to them, really, really carefully listen to them, and I've even got advice from you at times. Being new to London, I'd listen to you pretty carefully.
Bloody hell, you are.
because
Let me
you've
tell you
been
something.
around the
Your
traps.
radar's very off there. Well, listen.
Well-
I met you when you first come to London,
Yeah.
and you put all your bikes in my warehouse.
Well,
So,
you were one of the only people that showed any hospitality to us in London, and I won't forget that, because you opened your arms and your doors to us and really helped me
Mate.
with the business here, and I do appreciate that.
I spot people who are trying,
Yeah.
and the whole idea of all of us is to help each other. You know, we're in this thing called life. We're experiencing it together, but everybody thinks they're doing it personally. You know, that's why the world is in a bit of chaos at the moment, because we've kind of got away from some of the basic rules of humanity, which is to help your neighbour, help your mate, and try and move the whole thing forward. So that's really what life is about. But, you know, interestingly, you, when I met you, gave me a love for motorbikes again, and we'll get back onto that later.
Yeah.
But ever since you come and gave me one of your electric scooters and said, go off on that again. And bearing in mind, I'd been riding motorbikes all my life, and I'd got off of them because I thought London was dangerous.
Yeah.
And I found freedom with Mute,
Yeah.
which I'm still enjoying today. So later on, we'll get back onto the whole
no
Mute
worries.
thing, which was massively interesting. So look, you've come out of the mining now.
Yeah.
You're still in Australia. How old are you, and what is the next stage? Because you went to a massively interesting part of the world where we're all shit scared of, and we're all told that they're, you know, they are the next biggest problem, which is China. But you don't see it that way. China.
Look, in the business that I had, I got to know China a lot. I was in China a lot. And I thought, and in those days, China really was growing. It wasn't the metropolis it is today. You're talking 30 years ago. So
You was there, what, in the late, sort of early 90s?
yeah, mid to late 90s, I was working for other companies, and then when I had my own company, I was there pretty constantly. But in the transition out of the mining is a big, expensive game. And I had a small mine, but it turned me into... it made money for me, so I had some operating capital for the first time in my life. I ended up selling that mine to a much bigger mining company. And then in the progress of being in China, quite often you would see how the raw materials were used. You know, so the iron ore, it just doesn't go into roof girders and railway lines. It goes into manufacturing cars and motorbikes and whatever, particularly what I was into, which was high-quality steels. And one day I was at a motorcycle factory, and they were using our product, and they took the mill that was milling the iron ore, said, come to this factory and have a look. And at that stage, China wasn't building anything of quality. They were really
It was
they
early
weren't exporting.
days.
Early
Yeah,
days,
yeah,
they were, you know, everybody drove a black Buick. There was no real money. The Communist Party was still had their hand on their foot on everybody's throat, but you could feel that there was a momentum coming. And I thought, wow, you know, I remember seeing a motorbike there and saying to these people, do you export? And they looked at me and said, oh, you're crazy. And I said, well, if I brought a motorbike to China and we copied it here, could you...
Reverse engineer it, not copy, because China...
Copy, well...
China never copy anything.
Reverse engineers it.
They're they're engineering.
Yeah, you're right. Reverse engineer
not copy.
Could you do it? So they said yes. So it took me about a year. I got an old Vespa, a 1962 Vespa. I took it to China. I made all the panels of plastic. I re-engineered the frame.
Excellent.
I spoke to the motor manufacturers, so I got a re-engineered copy of a...
So you was going to make a combustion engine motorcycle in China in the early days, late 90s, when it was still super cowboy town.
Yeah.
Very brave.
And
very brave.
Not only was I the first one to make one, I was the first one to export one overseas. So we were I created a brand called Vimoto, called VMOTO. V was because Vespa was going to be a challenge, and I had to make the brand look very
similar,
un-Chinese.
but yeah, exactly, yeah.
And within 12 months of creating that brand, we were outselling in Australia, which is a very small market, but we're outselling Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki and Kawasaki combined. Amazing. We sold more in the first year than the top 4 Japanese brands did combined.
Could you believe it? Could you actually believe it? You must have sat there and just thought,
well, the first
container
of 52 bikes arrived. I took out a 10-penny ad in the local paper in Perth, and by the time the container arrived, every single unit was sold. They were only 2,000 dollars each. But
Amazing.
interestingly enough, my family in Perth, that was in the year 1998, and my family in Perth is sending me pictures daily of those bikes that are still out on the road. So we built a good quality product.
Amazing. So this is the stuff that I want. This is the stuff. The world is doom and gloom at the moment, but there are men like Patrick that just go out and make things happen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's what, and the rest of you can do that as well, because there's thousands of you, millions of you out there. Get your ideas, form it into actually a plan. And what we're trying to tell you here today is the only person stopping you is you. Get up and get out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's a one-time life, Patrick. God gives you the hands, the ears, the entire... Look, we've all got the same things.
We interrupted this broadcast due to YouTube's algorithm. Continue watching on the link below.